Welcome back to Robin Reviews. As you'll see before us, there's a basket, and this basket holds some of the greatest inventions of all time. It is one theme, and so I wanted to keep it a bit of a surprise before I pulled out the first thing. But I know that retro is a big thing, and so we're going to do a bit of a, not long, but a bit of a brief walkthrough from retro to more current. And so one of the first things we have here is the original Nintendo controller for the NES. I do want to review them as well. This is probably one of my favorite controllers of all time. I mean, it's simple, but it does so much. When this first came out, it was popular. I wasn't really old enough or own one myself, but I wasn't one of the people who knew, like, oh, to get the special code, do, like, BB right, BBA, up, 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 down, whatever those are. And I remember, actually, I have the original Nintendo. I don't have a lot of games for it. I have, like, the Mario 1 with Duck Hunt, Mario 3, Dr. Mario, Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, which was a lot of fun. But one of the hardest things I remember is in Mario 3, which is probably one of my favorite games of all time. In the ice world, I want to say somewhere in 6, 7, 8, 9 in that region, there was this level where you had to beat it, you had to hit the Koopa and then hold his shell while building up power to fly. And so you had to, like, hold the shell with B, then run holding B, and then tap A to fly up to the top. Because I think you had to take out a Goomba and some bricks with the shell. But I mean, it does get more classic than this controller. Again, it's very simple, but it's very powerful, and so I do enjoy that. I have two of these, as well as a very important feature, which I'm going to pull out now, because I already talked about it a little bit, is the Duck Hunt gun. Now, I learned a while ago, I actually thought this was broken because it wasn't working with my new TV, and I realized it's the TV. And so in the living room, I have an older TV, a Cube TV, with the Nintendo, and so I do enjoy Duck Hunt, and the clay shooter as well. It's been explained, I've watched videos, but I still don't even understand how that works, like how it knows where you're pointing. I don't get it. I do always brag that I'm good at Duck Hunt, and I'm not talking like sitting in front of the screen. I just really enjoy aiming and trying to aim properly. The one thing, and it's going to sound really morbid, but the one thing I wish you could do is I wish you could, shoot that laughing dog when you miss the ducks. Luckily, I don't miss them too often, but when I do, it's just that extra kind of jab that it gets at you. Not only did you miss, but I'm going to laugh at you. And I know there's been similar things made for consoles and since this came out in 85, but this is pretty high level in my opinion for 85 that you could play that type of game. I usually will stick to one duck or the clay shooter. I find two ducks is a bit much, but honestly, it doesn't get much better than this. So I like having the vintage ones. Unfortunately, I don't have a Super Nintendo anymore. I gave it to some friends, Braden and Daniel, in like 2011. I just wasn't using it, so I wanted to go to a good home. I also used to have, still had a Sega Genesis with some of the original Sonic games. But I cleared house a little bit a few years ago, so I do still have the original Nintendo and a few other things which I'm going to show. Now, I know I said the original Nintendo controller is one of my favorite controllers of all time, but it has some competition, and that is with the GameCube controller. And so it's the wrong one. So this is one of the, not knockoffs, but this is one of the ones you could buy when GameCube was in its later years. But I'm going to put this one aside because I grabbed the wrong one. And they look very, very similar, but this is an actual Nintendo brand GameCube controller. I actually don't even have a GameCube anymore. But, I have one GameCube game because GameCube games work in the Wii, and the GameCube game I still have is Super Mario Strikers. But even that I don't play anymore because I got the Strikers for Switch. But this is just so nostalgic for me. And so I actually have four of these. I think there's two of the GameCube brand. and two of the knockoff, so to speak, brands that still work as well. And the reason I have so many, and I'm sure you know this, is because the GameCube controller works with the Wii. There's a panel on the top you can flip up, and there's 4 spots. And although I mean I love the trying to figure out the Wii controls for like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, this is classic for me. I love playing with Link, and so I mean I always know the red button up B or down A is great for Link. I just love how playful it is. This is classic in my book. It reminds me a lot of the N64 controller, not in terms of the shape, but just in terms of what you're used to pressing. And so when I'm able to, if I'm going to play one of the older Smash Brothers games, I'd much prefer to play with a GameCube controller. I love the purple Z, and just everything that goes into this. So again, I don't have the GameCube anymore. I did have one for a lengthy period of time, but I don't anymore. But you'll have to let me know as well in the comments what your favorites are, if you have favorite games. I didn't actually get a lot of games. Actually, not a lot of my systems have a lot of games. For example, the next one I'm going to show, I only have 4 games for, and actually I only play 2 of them. And so that is the classic, and I always wrap the controller in this. Classic, I don't even have to say it. You know what this is. Classic N64. Once I get more followers, more likes, more subscribers, maybe someday I'll do trivia. But before I say, I'm curious if anyone has any guesses. You can let me know what you were going to say in the comics as to what my 4 games are. 2 of the games are WWF related. Yes, F, not E. And so that's WWF Attitude and WrestleMania 2000. I mean, they're very nostalgic games. I just find the controls from them very tedious, and so I don't remember where I got those ones. But the reason I actually I got an N64, but it was with other games, and the 2 games that I went out of my way to get were Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racing. Very nostalgic for me, and but the crown jewel for me is GoldenEye. I'm very excited to hear that they're going to completely revamp it for Xbox, but for me, that game is incredible. There's just so many different ways you can do it, so many levels, so many different gun options. I know there's some favorites. For me, one of the best guns in that game is still going to be the laser gun. I'll often say, if someone asks if I could have any weapon for a zombie apocalypse, what would it be? It would be the laser gun, because there is no ammo restrictions, and so I don't know why I wouldn't use it. But the N64 is classic. I would love to one day get like the old Smash Brothers and Mario Kart. But for now, I mean, I love this, and I love how they kept, this one came before. I don't know why I did the GameCube first, but that's just how it goes. I love how they kept kind of the whimsical coloring in most ways when they did go over to the GameCube, but this is it's probably one of the controllers that almost unanimously, whether you're a big gamer or not, will be the most nostalgic. I don't have many controllers for that. I think I have 2, and I have the black N64, which is it's pretty fantastic. So we're gonna move to see what I pull out. So you know what this is. This is the wheel for Nintendo Wii. Now, I want to put it out there again, if you want to answer in the comics. Do you like using these wheels? Personally, I don't think I could hate them more. Maybe it's just because I'm so used to using like the GameCube controller with the joystick. But I just find these, maybe it just takes skill that wasn't willing to invest in to learn how to play, where I'd actually have to have more control over the steering. I may or may not be someone who turns on the, I don't know what it's called. It's the stick that comes out of the back of your vehicle that keeps you on the track. I may or may not be one of those guys, and so maybe that's why I don't like to actually steer. But when the Wii came out and they started to come out with these, I mean, it was pretty ingenious. I still have the Wii and some classic games like Wii Sports, and do have Mario Kart, but we did cleaning house before I moved from Ontario, and couldn't get rid of these even if I didn't have racing games. Just they're so they're already starting to be nostalgic. I remember I had a friend when I was in college who he was going home to London for the weekend, London, Ontario, and he was assistant manager, I think, in a Best Buy. And so I asked him to get one for me, and he didn't think it was possible. But then he came back with one, and I remember I got into like well, Wii Sports was the big one, and I also really enjoyed playing like I say, like GameCube games on it. I'm trying to remember the other game. It was not Red Dead Redemption. Anyway, I apologize that I'm blanking on it. The Wii, I mean, I do like it, but out of all the systems I still have, it would probably be my least favorite. I've spent the least amount of time on it so far. If we're talking GameCube, original, and then 64. GameCube probably has the most amount of playtime for me, only because of college. Then N64. Nintendo, I will play. Like, I will occasionally crack out Mario Brothers 3 and get the whistles and try and beat it really quickly. But it's really solid things, the Wii, and so I do have in here as well the nunchuck and the controller. I loved boxing with Wii Sports. And this was very new and cutting edge for its day. And I still think it's pretty awesome how they did it. And learning how to use both. If you're playing as Link or someone with a bow and arrow, learning, to pull back and to let go and how that works. And so there's the great stuff. Just one of the things you get, and I know you can get... you could have gotten rechargeable packs, but one of the things, and I won't admit this to his face, but you know who you are, but one of the things I think PlayStation kind of has a leg up on a lot of in this area, at least up until the Switch, is the ability to not have actual batteries in the controllers, but charge them as they are. I am an Xbox person. I love Halo, but it does bug me when I have to change the batteries. Even if you can get a rechargeable pack, you still have to physically recharge it. And we had to do the same thing with this. There was a two-part pod we had, so a two-slot pod, sorry, and just sat in there and charged, whereas PlayStation, you can just plug it right in. You don't have to take batteries or anything. But again, I won't admit that to anyone's face who prefers PlayStation. Do have a few last controllers here. The next two are very similar. And so I'm actually going to show them side by side as we transition to the next one. And that is the Wii Pro Controller and the Switch Pro Controller. I find the Pro Controllers very similar to the GameCube controllers, almost identical. I know the X and the Y move around to be more like your PlayStation and your Xbox controllers now, but there's something very comfortable for me about having a controller like this. So I'm going to move from that one quickly because I didn't spend a lot of time with the Wii, like I said. This is a fantastic controller, the Pro controller for the Nintendo Switch. I do also have the handheld controller that you can slide the joysticks into. But there's something amazing about this. This one is why I said, like, up until Nintendo Switch, this one also, you just plug right into the system itself and it'll charge. You don't need to take anything out to charge it. Whereas, I have the Xbox, not the X, the one before that, Xbox One, and you have to take the batteries out every once in a while, even if you have a rechargeable one. One of my biggest pet peeves is because I will sometimes interchange between Nintendo and Xbox, is that the A and the B are swapped. And so I'll go on to my Nintendo and I'll be like, trying to press, I think I'm pressing B to go back, and it keeps going further in, or vice versa. But I love everything about this controller. My favorite games for Nintendo Switch, for example, Smash Brothers is probably my top game. But I'm more of the AB. I rarely will use the right joystick or the arrow pad. But I love being the ABXY. And so last but not least, I do have my Nintendo Switch, which has the green and pink Joy-Cons. I did originally have the double gray, and that was when they were coming out, where I think it was the right one was a bit faulty when you had them out. The receptor to bring the signal over wasn't strong when they came out with them, and so then I had the neon yellow ones, and I still have all those, but I have my favorite is the green and the pink. I believe these came out with Splatoon. But I love the coloring. I rarely will use them individually. I don't play a lot with other people in person, and so you don't really have a lot of need to take out like the green or the pink. But I mean, Nintendo's always been ahead of its time. I love something small. Like for me, when you have the Switch with the screen, it's very dirty, my apologies, but when you have the screen out and you attach the Joy-Con, the whole side of the screen has that color, and so it knows. It doesn't just know you're plugging a Joy-Con in, it knows what color it is. And so I mean, it's a little thing. So here's some of my games on here, since I'll just transition here a little bit because we're talking about controllers. I was recently playing Smash Brothers, but I have Mario Strikers Battle League, Breath of the Wild. Briefly started playing Fortnite. Demoed the Kirby game, Mario Kart, Ultra Street Fighter, ARMS, which ARMS I rarely play anymore, but it was pretty fun. For my birthday a few years ago, Patrick got me the 3-pack Super Mario 3D All-Stars, which is Super Mario 64, Galaxy, and Sunshine, which are all great. And then they have Super Mario Odyssey as well, which I love doing. The only complaint I have about that game is I felt that the final level was just too long with no opportunity to be regenerated other than the beginning. And so it took me a while to do. That's the one where you have to like flip from the bars. And then you have to run on the pathway that goes ahead of you and then disappears. You have to go. There's all sorts of things you have to do, and I find it very long. The one thing I will say, just to cap off this video, I do love the Nintendo Switch. My favorite game is Super Smash Bros. I think two of the and they're not little known, but I think two of the best parts of this game that you don't always talk about are Smashdown. So, and I'm actually going to quit this for demonstration purposes. It's going to say I won, but I mean, I won early. Shouldn't have lost 3 times, but that's what happens when you have someone small that Bowser just has trouble finding because he's much bigger. Smashdown, what you do is you go in and you... it's going to ask me if I want to play again. I just want to get to the rules part. It asks you your max battles, mercy rule. And what this does basically is, once you set your battles or mercy rules, is you and however many computer players there are, you pick a character, but then the next round you get a win or a loss if that's what happens to you. But the very next round, all the characters that were played in the previous round and previous rounds are not available. So if you play the first round as Link versus Ganondorf, then in the second round you can't be Link or Ganondorf. With the characters that I have, I believe the max is 37 rounds. And so if the mercy rule's off, it means you're playing 37 rounds. And it'll tell you once you've won, but you keep going. But if you have the mercy rule on, for example, here, if it was 1-on-1, it's when you get to 19, you're done. And you win. And my other really fun part, although there are problems with it, is also Squad Strike. If you haven't done Squad Strike before, I highly suggest it. You can do either tag team or best of. So tag team means you have a team, and then once your teammate dies, the next one comes in, whereas best of is say you do 5 versus 5, it's first to 3. And so, but what you do with Squad Strike, you pick either 3 or 5, and then you go in and you pick 5 fighters. And then you can either pick the 5 fighters for the computer or do random. And it's basically you get 1 life each, and it's either best first to 3, or in terms of how you do it, it's either best of 3, one after the other, and the person will spawn after your previous person dies. Or if you do the best of feature, the official name best of, it means that each of the 5 fights gets its own map. You're still only doing the 1 life, but you are regenerating an entire new map. So that can take a while. My biggest problem with this way of playing, though, is after you finish a round, there is no option to go right back in and keep the same fighters. You have to manually pick all 5 fighters again. Anyway, I know this is about controllers, but I figure since I was going to end on Switch, I would just briefly talk about that. And I do mean it. I think that is one of the best baskets of Vengeance ever made. I think Nintendo does a fantastic job with their games, and their controllers are very solidly built. I liken Nintendo controllers to like the Nokia smartphones. That's how solid they are. I do think as they've gotten further along, I don't think the Joy-Cons are super solid and durable. I've had some problems with them where if they get, you put something on them or they're leaning or something, you could really hurt the joysticks. And so I think the quality might have gone down a little bit, especially since the early days of the original Nintendo controller and GameCube. But they still do a great job, and it's still one of the best, and they're leading the way. And I can't see what they do next. So hey, if you're listening, please subscribe, like it, leave me some comments. Let me know what your favorite was. Even if you don't want to talk controllers, let me know what your favorite games are. I'd love to hear from you guys, and I really appreciate you watching. Thanks.